The smell of funeral flowers and stale air clung to everything. It was in my coat, in my hair, and I was sure it would be in my pillow when I finally fell into bed. The day had been a blur of black clothes, sad eyes, and whispered words of, "I'm so sorry." I just nodded, a hollowed-out version of myself, because the only person I wanted to hear from was the one who was gone forever, my dad. He was my whole world. My mom passed away when I was little, so it had always been just the two of us. He was the one who taught me how to ride a bike, who helped with my math homework, even when he didn't understand it, and who made the best, slightly burnt pancakes on Saturday mornings. Then, Carol came along a few years ago. She was all bright lipstick and sharp smiles that never quite reached her eyes. Dad was happy though, or at least less lonely, so I tried. I really did. I set the table for her, complimented her cooking, and stayed out of her way, but I always felt like a guest in my own home. A piece of furniture from a previous life that she couldn't wait to get rid of. After the last of the relatives had left, their quiet sympathy trailing out the door with them, the house fell into a heavy silence. It was the first time I was truly alone with Carol since Dad had passed in the hospital. I was standing in the living room, clutching a framed photo of me and Dad at a carnival, my face sticky with cotton candy, and his eyes crinkling with laughter. The grief hit me in a fresh wave, so strong it buckled my knees. "You can stop with the waterworks," Carol said from the doorway. Her voice was as cold and hard as a marble countertop. I looked up, confused. "What?" I said. "You can stop. He's gone. Crying isn't going to bring him back." She walked into the room, not looking at me, but at the furniture, the lamps, the rugs. It was like she was taking inventory. "There are things we need to discuss." I just wanted to go to my room, crawl under the covers, and pretend this whole day, this whole week, hadn't happened. "Can we do it tomorrow, Carol? I'm just so tired." "No, we'll do it now." She finally turned to me, and her face was a mask of grim determination. "The house is mine now, Lily. The will is very clear. Everything is in my name." My blood ran cold. Dad told me he made sure I'd be taken care of. A small, cruel smile played on her lips. "He left you a small savings account for your education. It's not much, but it's more than some people get. As for this house, and everything in it, it belongs to me." I couldn't process it. My head was swimming. This was my home. The scuff mark on the floor was from when I fell off my scooter. The faint pencil lines on the doorframe marked my height from age 6 to 16. "Okay," I whispered, my voice trembling. "So, you're my guardian now?" I was 19, legally an adult, but I was still in community college, working a part-time job at a bookstore. I had no idea how to exist in the world without my dad. Carol let out a short, sharp laugh. "Guardian, don't be ridiculous. You're an adult. It's time you stood on your own 2 feet." She crossed her arms. "I need you out by the end of the week." The world tilted. The air left my lungs. "Out? What do you mean out? Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem," she said, her voice flat. "You can stay with friends. You have friends, don't you? Look, Lily, I'm starting a new life now, a quiet one, and it doesn't include raising my husband's grown daughter." Tears streamed down my face, hot and angry now. "He wasn't just your husband. He was my father. We buried him today. How can you do this? Life is hard. You'd better learn that now." She turned and walked towards the kitchen. "Friday. I want your room empty by Friday afternoon. I'm having it repainted." And that was it. No discussion. No compassion. My father had been dead for 3 days, and the woman he loved was kicking me out of the only home I had ever known. The next few days were a nightmare. I packed my life into 2 suitcases and 3 cardboard boxes. Every object was a memory. The worn-out teddy bear Dad won for me at the fair. The collection of keychains from our road trips. I carefully wrapped the photo album, its pages filled with his warm, loving smile. Carol watched me like a hawk, making sure I didn't take anything she considered hers, which was apparently everything down to the coffee mug Dad had given me for my birthday. I called the few friends I had. They were all in dorms or living with their own families in cramped apartments. They offered sympathy and a couch for a night or two, but no one could offer a real solution. I couldn't be a burden on them. On Friday, I stood on the curb with my meager belongings. The door to my home clicked shut behind me. The sound of a final brutal ending. Carol didn't even say goodbye. I had a few $100s from my last paycheck, and the savings account Dad left me, which Carol had informed me, contained $5,000. It felt like a fortune, and nothing at all at the same time. My first stop was a cheap, run-down motel by the highway. The room smelled of bleach and cigarette smoke, and the bedspread was thin and scratchy. I lay there that night, staring at the water-stained ceiling, and cried until I had no tears left. I was completely and utterly alone. The next few weeks were a blur of fear and desperation. The $5,000 was for college, for my future. I was terrified to touch it. I quit my classes because I couldn't focus, and I needed to find a full-time job. I applied everywhere: grocery stores, fast food chains, cleaning services. My resume was thin, my experience limited. I got a lot of "we'll call you" and a lot of polite rejections. The motel money was running out. I started skipping meals, buying cheap crackers and instant noodles. The weight fell off me, and dark circles formed under my eyes. I looked in the mirror one morning and barely recognized the gaunt, scared girl staring back at me. Finally, I got a job. It was at a 24-hour diner called the Corner Booth, working the graveyard shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The pay was minimum wage, but the tips were okay. I moved out of the motel and into a tiny room I found for rent in a crowded house with 3 other people. My room was little more than a closet with a mattress on the floor, but the rent was cheap. My life became a cycle of exhaustion. I'd work it all night, serving coffee to tired truck drivers and college kids pulling all-nighters. My feet ached, my back hurt, and I always smelled faintly of grease and stale coffee. I'd get home in the morning as the sun was coming up, sleep for a few fitful hours with a pillow over my head to block out the light, and then wake up in the afternoon with a heavy feeling of dread in my stomach. The grief for my dad was a constant companion, a dull ache that never went away. Some nights, when I was wiping down a sticky table or refilling salt shakers, I'd see a man who looked a little like him from behind, and my heart would seize up in my chest. I missed him so much. It felt like a physical wound. There was one regular customer who was different from the others. He was an older man, probably in his late 70s, who always came in around 3 a.m. He had kind, watery blue eyes and wore simple but well-kept clothes. He always sat in the same booth, ordered a cup of black coffee and a slice of apple pie, and read a paperback book. He never said much, but he always smiled at me, a genuine, gentle smile. And he always left a $20 tip for a $5 bill. The first time he did it, I tried to give it back. "Sir, this is too much," I said, my cheeks flushing. He just waved his hand. "Nonsense, my dear. You work hard." After a few weeks, he started to talk to me a little more. "Quiet night tonight, Lily," he'd say, having learned my name from my name tag. "Yes, Mr. Gable," I'd reply, having learned his from his credit card. It usually is. One night I was just completely overwhelmed. A customer had yelled at me because his eggs were too runny. A plate had slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor, and I had just gotten a letter saying I was late on my rent. I was hiding in the dry storage room, leaning against a sack of flour, silently crying. When I came out, my eyes red and puffy, Mr. Gable was still there, his book closed on the table. He looked at me with such deep concern, it made my throat ache. "Are you all right, child?" he asked, his voice soft. I tried to force a smile. "I'm fine, just a long night." He didn't believe me. "Lily," he said, and his tone was so fatherly, so kind, that the dam I had built inside me just broke. The whole story came tumbling out. My dad, the funeral, Carol, the motel, the crushing loneliness and fear. I stood there by his booth, whispering my story, tears silently tracking through my foundation. He listened patiently, his blue eyes never leaving my face. He didn't interrupt, he didn't judge, he just listened. When I finished, my voice thick with emotion, he simply nodded. "No one should have to go through that alone," he said. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. "My name is Arthur Gable. I know this is forward, but I need some help. I think you might be the right person for the job." I looked at the card. It just had his name, a phone number, and an address in a very wealthy part of town. "A job? What kind of vast job?" "My wife passed away last year," he said, a sad smile touching his lips. "She loved our home, our garden. It's a big house, and I'm not as young as I used to be. I need someone to help keep things in order. Light housekeeping, running errands, maybe just making sure I take my pills on time. And to be honest," he looked down at his hands, "the house is terribly quiet. I could use the company." He looked back up at me. "It comes with a room and board, and a proper salary, of course." I was stunned. It sounded too good to be true. "Mr. Gable, I don't have any experience. I just work in a diner. I have a good feeling about you, Lily. I can see you have a good heart, and that's more important than any experience." He pushed the card across the table. "Please think about it. Call me tomorrow." I took the card, my hand trembling. That night I couldn't sleep. Was this real? Was he some kind of creep? But my gut, the part of me that still remembered my dad's gentle wisdom, told me this man was kind. He had the same look in his eyes that my dad used to have. The next afternoon, I called him. His voice was warm and steady on the phone. We arranged for me to come to his house for an interview. When the taxi pulled up to the address, my jaw dropped. It wasn't a house, it was a mansion. A beautiful old stone building surrounded by a sprawling garden filled with roses. I felt small and shabby in my worn-out jeans as I walked up the stone path. Arthur answered the door himself. "Lily, I'm so glad you came." The inside of the house was warm and filled with light. There were shelves overflowing with books, beautiful paintings on the walls, and comfortable-looking furniture. It didn't feel like a museum. It felt like a home, a real home. We sat in his study, and he told me about his life. He and his wife Eleanor had built a successful software company from the ground up decades ago. They never had children. He was, as I was slowly realizing, a millionaire. But he spoke of his success with a quiet humility. He was more interested in talking about his wife's love for gardening and the trips they used to take. He offered me the job, and the salary he named was more than I made in 3 months at the diner. He showed me to my room. It was bigger than my entire shared apartment. It had a soft, comfortable bed with a fluffy duvet, a desk overlooking the garden, and its own bathroom. I started to cry. "Mr. Gable, I don't know what to say. This is "This is too much. Please call me Arthur," he said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "And it's not too much. Kindness shouldn't be a luxury, Lily. It should be the standard." I accepted. I gave my notice at the diner and moved my few boxes into that beautiful sunlit room. The first week was strange. I kept expecting something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop, but it never did. My job was simple. I made sure the kitchen was stocked, picked up Arthur's prescriptions, and helped him sort through his late wife's things, which we did together, sharing stories. Mostly we just talked. I told him more about my dad, about his goofy laugh and his terrible jokes. Arthur told me about Eleanor, about her fiery spirit and her passion for art. We were two lonely people who found comfort in each other's company. He discovered my love for drawing, something I'd shared with my dad. He bought me a new set of sketch pads and pencils and encouraged me to draw in the garden. He saw the potential in me that I thought had been extinguished. One evening, a few months after I'd moved in, we were sitting in the living room. "Lily," he said, turning to me, "you told me your father left you some money for your education." "Yes," I said. "I haven't touched it." "Good," he nodded. "I want you to use it, but I don't think it will be enough. The university downtown has an excellent fine arts program. I've looked into it. I would be honored if you would allow me to pay for your tuition." I was speechless. "Arthur, you've already done so much for me. I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking, I'm offering," he said firmly. "Seeing you find your way, seeing you create a future for yourself, that would be the greatest gift you could give an old man. Let me help you do that. Let me be the person your father would want you to have in your corner." And so, I did. I enrolled in college that fall, studying art history and painting. I moved out of Arthur's house and into a dorm, but I went back every weekend for dinner. Arthur became the grandfather I never had. He came to my art shows, read my essays, and beamed with pride at my good grades. I never saw Carol again. I heard, through the grapevine, that she sold the house and moved away. For a long time, I was filled with a bitter, simmering anger towards her. But with time, and with Arthur's gentle guidance, I learned to let it go. Her cruelty had been a catalyst. It had thrown me into the darkest part of my life, but it was in that darkness that I found the most unexpected light. It wasn't about the money. Arthur being a millionaire was just a circumstance. The real treasure was his kindness. He gave me a safe place to land when I was in freefall. He showed me that family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who show up for you when you have nothing left. I look back now at that terrified, grieving girl standing on the curb with her suitcases, and my heart aches for her. I wish I could tell her that it would be okay, that she would survive this, that her father's love was still with her, and that it would guide her to a person who would help her heal. My life isn't perfect, and I still miss my dad every single day. But my life is full. It's full of art and learning and hope. And it's full of the unconditional love of a kind old man who bought a slice of pie from a sad-eyed waitress in the middle of the night and ended up giving her back her future.